The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and rain. The rain had been pouring since morning, drumming softly against the glass window beside my bed. Each drop felt like a countdown to the most important moment of my life, the moment I would finally meet my child. My heart raced between contractions, but it was not just the labor pains that made me restless that night. It was something deeper, a gnawing unease that refused to leave. I could not explain it, yet I could feel it crawling under my skin like a quiet whisper telling me that something was not right. Before we go deeper into this story, I want to take a moment to appreciate everyone watching right now. Thank you to all my amazing subscribers for your endless love and support. And to all new and returning viewers who are yet to subscribe, I truly cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It serves as the fuel and energy that keeps this channel alive. Please make sure to engage and share your thoughts in the comments below, because your words mean more than you can ever imagine. Now, let us go back to that night, the night that changed everything. Ryan was pacing across the hospital hallway when the nurse walked in to check my vitals. He had always been restless, but that evening his nervousness seemed almost unnatural. His hands trembled slightly when he tried to hold mine. His eyes darted toward his phone more times than they met mine. I told myself it was anxiety, maybe fear, maybe excitement about becoming a father. After all, Ryan had always been the ambitious, career-driven man who needed everything to appear perfect, including his emotions. We had been married for 4 years, and for most of that time, I believed I was living every woman's dream. Ryan and I met in college in Oregon. He was the kind of man who could walk into any room and command attention without even trying. He had an easy smile, a charming voice, and a way of making me feel like the only woman in the world. When he proposed to me under the cherry blossom trees near Pike Place Market, I thought life had finally given me my forever. We bought a small but beautiful house in Seattle, the kind with white walls, hardwood floors, and a little garden filled with daisies that I planted myself. Every corner of that house felt like a promise. We shared laughter, dreams, and quiet Sunday mornings over pancakes and coffee. When I found out I was pregnant, Ryan cried tears of joy. He lifted me in his arms and said that our love had finally found its heartbeat. But love, I would later learn, can wear a perfect mask. That evening in the hospital, Ryan received a phone call just before my contractions intensified. I remember the way he hesitated, how his eyes shifted away from mine as he stepped into the hallway. "Work emergency," he said when he returned, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. He smelled faintly of his cologne mixed with something else, something floral that did not belong to me. I brushed it off. Labor pain does strange things to the mind, I told myself. As the hours passed, I drifted between consciousness and pain. I remember crying for Ryan when the nurse said he was not around. I thought he might have gone to grab coffee, maybe make a call to his parents, or something innocent. But when he returned almost 2 hours later, his hair was disheveled, and his shirt had a faint smudge of lipstick that he quickly covered with his jacket. In that moment, I looked at him differently. Something in me broke a little, but I buried it beneath the waves of labor. I wanted to believe my husband could never do something cruel at such a sacred time. The baby came just after midnight, a beautiful baby boy with his father's blue eyes. The moment they placed him on my chest, I felt every pain melt away. My tears fell on his tiny face as I whispered promises to protect him forever. Ryan stood beside me, smiling for the camera, holding our newborn like he was the proudest man alive. Yet behind that smile, there was something, a flicker of guilt, or perhaps fear, that I did not understand then. 2 days after delivery, while I was still recovering, a nurse named Lydia approached me quietly. She looked uncomfortable, as if she wanted to say something but could not. She hesitated before whispering, "You have such a beautiful baby, Mrs. Thompson. I hope you are doing all right." Her eyes lingered on Ryan, who was talking to someone on the phone by the door. There was something unspoken in her tone, something that made my heart race. That night, as Ryan slept on the couch beside my bed, I stared at him for a long time. The man I had trusted with my life, the man I had believed was my soulmate, suddenly felt like a stranger. My instincts screamed at me, but I pushed them down again. I told myself it was just the hormones, just exhaustion. But deep down, I knew the truth was waiting for me, and when it came, it would destroy everything I held dear. I did not know then that while I was fighting to bring life into this world, my husband was giving himself to another woman. And not just any woman, someone far closer than I could ever imagine. The first weeks after childbirth were a blur of sleepless nights, soft cries, and quiet tears. I named my son Ethan, a name that meant strong, because I knew that from now on, I would need every bit of strength I could find. The pain of childbirth faded quickly compared to the heaviness that lingered in my heart. Ryan was there physically, yet emotionally, he felt oceans away. He would leave the house early in the morning, claiming work emergencies, and return late at night when Ethan and I were asleep. The man who once whispered love into my ears now spoke in short, empty sentences. He held the baby rarely and looked at me like I was a burden. I told myself he was simply overwhelmed by the new responsibilities of fatherhood. Still, every woman knows when something in her marriage begins to rot. Days turned into weeks, and my body healed, but my spirit began to fall apart. I had constant flashes of that night in the hospital, the lipstick stain, the missing hours, the nurse's uneasy eyes. The memories would not leave me alone. One cold Thursday morning, I woke up to the sound of Ryan's phone vibrating on the nightstand. He was in the shower. I had no intention of invading his privacy, but the phone would not stop buzzing. I glanced at the screen, the name that flashed froze me where I stood. Vanessa. My best friend. The same woman who had thrown my baby's shower 3 weeks before I went into labor. The same woman who had held my hand through every doctor's appointment, laughed in my living room, and promised to be my son's godmother. My heart began to pound violently against my chest. A voice inside me whispered, "Do not do it, Emily." But curiosity and dread pushed me beyond reason. I unlocked the phone. The first message I saw was dated the very night I gave birth. "She is in labor. You can come now. I miss you already. I need you, Ryan. Just this one time before everything changes." The words cut through me like shards of glass. My hands trembled as I scrolled further. There were photos, blurred, intimate, undeniable. Time seemed to stop. The walls closed in. I could not breathe. Every image, every word was a stab to my soul. The man I loved, the man I trusted with everything, had been with my best friend while I screamed for him in pain, bringing his child into the world. The shower stopped. Panic surged through me. I dropped the phone and sat on the edge of the bed, my breath shaking. Ryan walked out wrapped in a towel, humming lightly as if the world had not just collapsed around us. He looked at me and paused, his eyes narrowing when he saw the phone in my hand. I did not shout. I did not throw things. I simply looked at him and said, "You were with Vanessa, were you not?" His face changed. The confident, charming man I had once known turned pale. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His silence was louder than any confession. I stood up, my knees weak, and my voice trembling. "You left me while I was in labor, Ryan. You left me to sleep with my best friend." He tried to speak, excuses, apologies, denials, but I could no longer hear him. The room felt smaller. My chest ached as tears poured uncontrollably down my face. I grabbed my son's blanket and walked out of the room before he could stop me. I drove to my mother's house that night. The rain poured heavily again, as if the heavens themselves mourned with me. When my mother opened the door, I collapsed in her arms, sobbing until my voice was gone. She did not ask questions. She simply held me and whispered that no pain lasts forever. The next morning, I sat in silence as Ethan slept peacefully beside me. My phone buzzed with messages, all from Vanessa. "Emily, please let me explain. It was a mistake. We did not mean for it to happen. I am so sorry. Please do not hate me." I stared at her messages in disbelief. We did not mean for it to happen? How do two people accidentally betray someone who trusted them both? I felt a rage I had never known before. I deleted her messages without replying. Ryan, however, was not done. He came to the house 3 days later, unshaven, wearing guilt like a shadow. He begged to speak to me. My mother wanted to send him away, but I agreed. I needed to hear him admit it. He confessed everything. Vanessa had been there for him during the late months of my pregnancy. He claimed he felt lonely and neglected, as if my growing belly and exhaustion excused his weakness. He said it happened only once, that he regretted it instantly. But the messages told a different story. A story of weeks of emotional intimacy, of secret meetings, and of deceit woven in smiles and lies. I listened in silence as tears streamed down my face. When he finished, I said the words I never imagined I would have to say: "You destroyed everything, Ryan. You destroyed our home." He begged for forgiveness, but forgiveness does not live in the same house as betrayal. I asked him to leave. Watching him walk away was like watching the life I had built crumble brick by brick. Days turned into months. I struggled through postpartum depression and loneliness, trying to stay strong for Ethan. Nights were the hardest. I would sit in the rocking chair, holding him against my chest, and wonder how love could turn so cruel. Vanessa moved out of town. Ryan kept sending letters, flowers, and apologies that I never opened. My heart was broken, but I refused to let it destroy me. I knew I had to rise, not for Ryan, not for Vanessa, but for myself and for the little boy who depended on me. I enrolled in therapy, started working remotely again, and slowly began rebuilding the pieces of myself. I discovered a version of Emily that I never knew existed, one who could survive betrayal, loss, and heartbreak, yet still find the courage to love herself again. But life has a strange way of testing you twice. Just when I thought I had left the past behind, an unexpected twist brought Ryan back into my life, and with him, a truth far darker than the one I had already survived. The morning light poured softly through the curtains, painting streaks of gold across my son's crib. Ethan was already a year old, walking clumsily, laughing freely, and carrying an innocence untouched by the storms that had reshaped my world. Watching him sleep had become my quiet therapy, a reminder that something pure had come from all the chaos. By then, I had built a new life, one rooted in peace, far away from Ryan and all the memories that used to haunt me. I had moved into a small apartment near Lake Union, started freelancing as a designer, and surrounded myself with calm. The silence that once scared me now became my strength. I had grown to love solitude because it never lied to me. But one winter evening, everything I thought I had buried resurfaced with a single knock on my door. When I opened it, Ryan stood there. His once polished face looked worn, his eyes dimmed by exhaustion. I could barely recognize the man who had once charmed an entire room with a smile. He looked broken, and for a moment, I almost pitied him. He held a small envelope in his hand. "Please, Emily," he said quietly. "It is about Vanessa." The mention of her name made my chest tighten. I had spent months training myself not to react to that name, but hearing it again was like reopening a wound that had never truly healed. I allowed him inside, mostly out of curiosity, maybe even closure. Ryan sat across from me, his hands trembling. He told me that Vanessa had been diagnosed with late-stage cervical cancer. She had reached out to him recently, wanting to make peace before her time was up. He said she had confessed everything, even the things he had hidden from me. Vanessa had not only betrayed me once. She had continued to see Ryan for months after Ethan's birth. She had told him that she might have been pregnant at some point but lost the baby before she could confirm it. That revelation crushed me in ways I could not describe. I listened quietly, my body frozen in disbelief. Ryan wept. He said he had been haunted every single day by guilt, that his success meant nothing anymore, and that the weight of his choices had cost him his family, his peace, and his soul. For the first time in a long while, I saw not the man who betrayed me, but the man who had destroyed himself through his own weakness. Betrayal does that, it never ends with the person betrayed. It burns everyone who touched the lie. That night, after he left, I sat by the window watching the city lights reflect on the water. The past played through my mind, the laughter, the deception, the hospital room, and the baby in my arms. I thought about Vanessa, the friend who once swore she loved me like a sister, now fighting for her life. I wondered if she ever truly understood the pain she caused. A strange calm washed over me. For the first time, I realized forgiveness was not about them, it was about freeing myself. I no longer wanted to carry the bitterness. I had survived what was meant to destroy me. And that was enough. A week later, I decided to visit Vanessa. When I entered her hospital room, she looked frail and pale, her once bright eyes dim with regret. She burst into tears the moment she saw me. I did not say anything. I simply sat beside her, holding her cold hand. There were no apologies needed anymore, only silence and closure. She passed away 3 weeks later. I walked out of that hospital with a quiet strength I never knew I possessed. I had faced my deepest wounds, and I had come out healed, not hardened. Ryan attended the funeral alone. That was the last time I ever saw him. 2 years have passed since then. Ethan is now 3, full of questions and laughter. When he asks about his father, I tell him that sometimes people make mistakes that change their lives forever, but those mistakes do not define who we become after. I am not angry anymore. The pain once felt like a life sentence, but it became the fire that forged me into something stronger. Today, when I look back, I no longer see betrayal, I see rebirth. I see a woman who walked through heartbreak, shame, and grief, yet emerged with grace. I built a new life on truth. I learned that healing does not mean forgetting, it means remembering without letting the pain consume you. As I share my story today, I want every woman, and every man, listening to remember this: you do not owe loyalty to someone who broke you. You owe healing to yourself. The road to peace may be lonely, but it leads to freedom. So, to everyone watching right now, whether you have faced betrayal, heartbreak, or abandonment, let my story remind you that pain is not the end of your story. It can be the beginning of something more powerful than you ever imagined. Please, if you have found any strength in this story, do not forget to subscribe, like, and share it with someone who might need to hear these words today. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. It is the heartbeat that drives these real, raw stories to reach those who are silently hurting. Now, before we end, I want to leave you with a question, one that might sit quietly in your heart long after this story ends. If the person you loved most betrayed you at your weakest moment, would you seek revenge, or would you choose to rise? Once again, thanks for staying with me till the end of this story. Click on the box on the screen to watch and listen to more emotional and touching true life story. Stay safe.